Now, the other two victims, Jiang Hui Deng and Chen Shui Yin, were found dead in a Collingwood apartment on September 5th. And the suspect, Viet Quy John Lee, remains in custody and is in court later this month. And on the island, a construction company has been reprimanded after its truck and driver fell into a lake about 100 kilometers northwest of Victoria. Now, this incident was captured on video, which has now gone viral. And we're going to show you that video right now. You can see there a truck operating near the shore, and in an instant, it's swallowed by the waters of Nittinat Lake. Now, Rockstar Enterprises says the incident happened in August during a fish habitat restoration project. The driver was uninjured, and WorkSafe BC is investigating. And Premier David Eby and a number of ministers are in Ottawa today to lobby the federal government. Now, the Premier's office says the mission will focus on delivering prosperity and jobs for people here in BC. Eby will be joined by Minister of Finance Brenda Bailey, Minister of Jobs Ravi Kahlon, and Minister of Forests Ravi Parmar. And they'll discuss projects such as LNG Canada Phase 2 and the Red Chris mine expansion. And for the first time since March, the Bank of Canada is cutting the interest rate by 25 basis points to 2.5%. Now, it's a move that was widely expected, an attempt to stimulate the economy as disruptions with U.S. trade remain a factor in the dip in exports, a contraction of the country's GDP, and a loss of jobs. A mobile health van in downtown Eastside is now offering ultrasound services to those who are unhoused and living in shelters. The Kalala Layla Mobile Health Clinic aims to help people get checked wherever they are.
When we're serving our community members, they have sometimes blood clots or wounds, and we tell them to go to emergency. Most people don't get them taken care of. They don't go to emergency because they don't always feel safe going there. So the ultrasound will give us the opportunity to provide in-the-moment care.
Now, the mobile health clinic is staffed by nurses and community outreach workers. It can be found at Oppenheimer Park and various downtown East Side shelters from Monday to Friday. And that's it for me. I am Jessica Chung. Don't go anywhere because BC Today is up next. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Coming up at 1 o'clock, the province will make an announcement to address extortion threats in the South Asian community. That's been a big concern in Surrey. We'll bring that press conference to you live on our online platforms. This hour on our open line, the Bank of Canada cuts the key interest rate. We're going to find out what it means, and we'll ask you, what is your financial reality right now? Are you optimistic or uncertain about your financial future? That's this hour on the show. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. The Bank of Canada has lowered its key interest rate to 2.5%. That's a cut of 25 basis points. It is the first such cut since March, and the bank says the move is to stimulate a weakened Canadian economy. The cut was widely expected, but the question remains, will there be more to come this year? Here's some of what Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem had to say this morning.
Our primary mandate is to maintain low, stable inflation, and we are very focused on that. I mean, total inflation is 1.9%. It's been running slightly below 2 since April, largely as a result of the elimination of the consumer carbon tax. We do need to consider where inflation is going. At this point, inflationary pressures look a little more contained, and against that background and the background of a weakening economy that will put additional downward pressure on inflation, that tipped the balance of risks in favor of cutting our policy rate. If the risks tilt further, we're prepared to take more action, but we're going to take it one meeting at a time. We are taking a shorter horizon. We're being a little less forward-looking than usual, and we'll make that risk assessment in October when we get there.
Now, while the rate cuts are aimed at building confidence and spending to counter a weaker economy and rising unemployment, Macklem did say Canadians remain concerned about the cost of living. We're going to talk about that this hour on the program, taking your calls and asking you, what is your financial reality right now? And are you hopeful or uncertain about your financial future? What does this rate cut do for you? Whether you're starting out in your career, looking to buy a home or renew your mortgage, or you're planning for your retirement, what does that near future look like for you? You can join the conversation. Just call us, hit pound 690 on your cell phone, or dial 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 are our numbers. By email, you can reach us, bctoday@cbc.ca, or leave a comment on our TikTok Live. That's up right now at CBC British Columbia. We are spending the full hour on this topic, so we would love for you to weigh in and share your story. I have two guests up first for this conversation. With me in studio is Hasan Juma, who's a realtor with Juma Realty. And on Zoom, Rebecca Casey is president of the Canadian Mortgage Brokers Association's BC branch. Good afternoon to you both.
Hi, Michelle.
Nice to have you back on the show, both of you. Rebecca, what is the immediate impact of this rate cut?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me today, Michelle. It's, as you mentioned earlier, it's a promising sign. It's a step in the right direction, but without consumer confidence, we're not expecting to see a major rebound here. So it's good news. We're taking it. We're happy, but we expect there's more to come.
Okay. What does this do for consumer confidence, if anything?
I think it will help. Absolutely, it will help. The term uncertainty was used a lot less in today's announcement out of the Bank of Canada.
We're keeping a count, are we?
We are in the mortgage industry anyway. We definitely keep track of how many times they use that word because, we do understand that the Bank of Canada has two levers to pull. One of them is moving rates and the other is the messaging. And so, they alluded to the fact that, the inflationary threat is down a little bit and we need to start working on rebuilding. But, with levels of uncertainty and folks being concerned about job stability, it's still a little bit weak out there for sure.
Okay, certainly lots of points I want to touch on there. But from the macro, let's go to, immediate impacts. If you are someone who holds a variable mortgage, what does this mean for you?
Yes. So if you hold a variable rate mortgage where your payments have fluctuated with every Bank of Canada announcement rate change, you will see a change of $13 per month per $100,000 you owe less on your next mortgage payment. So immediate decrease in your regular scheduled mortgage payments is on the way. If you're in the type of mortgage payment where your payments have not changed this whole time, you will now be making more headway on your principal. So your payment stays the same, you're just paying off more of your principal as you go. So either way, variable rate holders, you're in a good position. Things are about to get better for you. If you're in a fixed rate, there's absolutely nothing changing for you today.
Not for a while until you renew. What does it mean for those people?
Yeah, that's another good question. So we do, a lot of conversations with folks who are renewing their mortgage. Top of mind for everybody is, how much is my mortgage payment going to increase? A lot of concern and worry about that. This does drop that expectation a little bit. So again, same idea there. $13 per month, approximately, per $100,000 you owe, less. That's the impact on your payments.
Okay. Now, Hasan, we've talked to you about this a lot, right? The housing market slowing considerably. Will this rate cut help?
I think in and of itself, the rate cut, not going to be doing too much for the market. But, having said that, over the last couple of months, we have seen more increased activity. So we're finally pacing to the type of sales we were doing last year, which since February we were way off of last year's numbers. So we already saw some activity increasing. This might give a little bit of a jolt to the buyers that have been shopping around. They've been maybe casually perusing properties. I think this could actually give them the incentive, coupled with prices coming down. And they have been for a year. I think with that happening, a little bit of jolt with the interest rate, I think it could push those casual buyers into actually writing offers and moving forward.
Something I heard a lot, besides uncertainty, from perhaps less so today, but from the Bank of Canada governor this morning, was this idea that there are other factors that are coming into play when it comes to consumer confidence. Some of that is about unemployment and the job market right now, how much businesses are having to deal with when it comes to tariffs and that kind of thing. For someone who's thinking about, do I get into the market? Should I sell my home now or buy a new one? How much does the job market and what that looks like for the next year weigh on their minds?
Yeah, it's been a big factor in lots of conversations I've been having pretty much all year. I've had buyers that initially early on in the year, they wanted to start looking at properties. We would have a discussion and they would say, look, our team's not quite hitting target this year. I don't know what's going to happen with my role. So that's one side of it. The other side of it, though, is life changes. This is a year where investment has been pulled out of we'll call it the retail real estate market. And so people are having to make life changes that they just have to move forward on, whether that's, separations, divorces, whether it's downsizing has to happen, or, couples need a larger space. So I think what we're seeing in this year's market is what Vancouver real estate looks like when you pull the investor out of the buy side. So yes, fears surrounding employment and economy, but sometimes life prevails, and having to make that life decision trumps, pardon the pun, everything.
Okay, and you're right. It's a lot more personal in that sense. Then my guests today are Hasan Juma, who is a realtor with Juma Realty. Rebecca Casey is president of the BC branch of the Canadian Mortgage Brokers Association. We're asking you this hour, what is your current financial reality? And does something like this rate cut today, does that do anything for you? Does it give you more optimism, or do you still feel uncertainty about the year ahead, your financial future? I'd love to hear from you, whether you are looking for a home or you're starting out in your career, looking to rent, or you're planning for your retirement. Want to hear from you. What are your thoughts about your financial reality and the near future? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Watching your comments on TikTok as well, at CBC British Columbia, and our email is bctoday@cbc.ca. Chris is on the line from Victoria. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the show. Tell us about your perspective on this.
Hey, Michelle. Thanks. Can you hear me all right?
Sure can. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've had this perspective for a while, and it's a really frustrating one. Cost of living seems to have been increasing exponentially since the pandemic. And I have found that since then, employers have not been increasing compensation to be able to keep up with the increased cost of living. So year after year, financially, things seem to be getting harder and harder for everyone. Even if you are, even if you're in a good place with a job and a salary and stuff like that, every year you're getting a little bit further behind. And unfortunately, because of the uncertainty in the economic climate right now, it's really uncomfortable to try to go and find a better job or salary elsewhere, because if you do end up having to start a new job, you're the low man on the totem pole there. And so if there are cuts that come to that company, you're the one that's likely going to be getting cut. And so, job security is hugely important, but employers really just do not seem to be putting any time and energy into ensuring that they are keeping up with the increased cost of living.
Yeah.
I have a question for your guests there. Something I don't really understand outside of mortgages is, how will this rate cut that we saw today actually make day-to-day things more affordable for people?
Yeah, that's a great question. Why don't I'll start with you then, Rebecca. Yeah, beyond buying a home, there's other big purchases as well, but day to day, what does it mean for our costs?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'm necessarily qualified to answer that in terms of, economically speaking. I think generally speaking, the cost of borrowing, so any business that's borrowing funds, they're going to see a reduction on their overhead. So, typically speaking, that should theoretically bring down just general cost of goods. I don't think it will have a profound impact on day-to-day cost of living expenses. But yeah, the main lens that we're looking at it through is borrowing, retail credit, and things like that.
Yeah, fair.
But there is obviously a trickle down and connection to day-to-day living and cost expenses.
Thank you for your response to that. And Chris, may I just point out as well, we will have Bryan Yu, who's economist with Central One Credit Union, joining us at 12:30. So I'll put that question to him as well for that bigger picture. But a really good question there, because you're of course looking at this like, what if I'm not looking for a home right now? What does this mean for me? Hasan, interesting to his point about there's job security, but also just wages not keeping up with the cost of living. How much of that is a consideration for people as well?
I would say that's probably been the biggest issue when it comes to affordability, being able to buy a home over the last decade. Wages just have not kept up with the price of assets across the country. So employers haven't been able to, keep up with inflation, especially after pandemic. Money got very cheap. Assets became ultra expensive. All types of real estate. Wages, of course, did not keep up, and it just broadened that gap between what someone who works very hard, 40 hours a week, full-time job, good job, but the price of the home just keeps getting away. And really, when it comes down to it, it's a wage discrepancy versus what these properties are worth.
Yeah, I can see you nodding there, Rebecca. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the connection to even rent, for
Yeah.
people who are not necessarily homeowners, through the last few years with the rate increases and the cost of, property skyrocketing and things, rents became just completely unaffordable. The government introduced quite a few different measures and priorities focused around purpose-built rental. And now we're in a place where we're seeing, a lot of rental product on the market, which, we've seen a reduction in rents. Now, market rents are coming down. That's happening. So, with the rate cuts and the property values coming down and things like that, on the other side of things, for people who are not homeowners, we're seeing a change in market rents as well.
Let's talk about that, the housing market overall. What does this actually, in the bigger picture of the housing market, whether rentals or purchasing, what do you make of the steps that have been taken by the province, federal government announcing these projects, and nothing in BC right now, but they say those are coming. So what do you make of what you're hearing from the different levels of government on that?
Yeah, I want to go back to what Hasan said earlier. about the investors being pulled out of the market. Yeah, and you see that a lot. I don't know about you, Hasan, but I know in my book of business, I've got plenty of clients with accepted offers subject to sale, and they're not selling their property, and so they're not able to close on the property they're committed to. It's less buyers on the market. Some areas we see major drops in property values, and then some areas the property values seem to be holding. It's just they're not selling, or they're not selling fast enough, or
Right.
and logic says drop the price and it'll go, but a lot of people are just want to sell for X dollars. So yeah, I think investors and folks, the mom and pop secondary property owner or property investor or landlord, we're seeing less and less and less of that, and more corporations owning purpose-built rental, which is it's helpful for people who are going to be career renters who don't intend to enter the market, because that's nice to have a little bit of a level playing field for them. But it is definitely shifting the market a little bit, from my perspective anyway. But I think Hasan has more authority on this topic.
What do you make of what you're seeing from different levels of government then?
Yeah, so I think ultimately, I don't know if the different levels of government are actually talking to each other about a lot of the policies that they're implementing. Federally, they've launched Build Canada Homes,
Right.
which is their solution to the housing crisis goal of 500,000 homes per year, it's an insane amount. We've never come close to it. We've come to 50% of that, but I think federally now they're starting to tackle the housing crisis from where it should be tackled. And from their own words, homelessness is the big priority, subsidized housing, below market rentals. So the stuff that's happening federally, it's not going to make it any easier for you to purchase a home. It will hopefully make it easier for you to put a roof over your head. And I think we can all agree that's what the true housing crisis is.
Okay, let's put out the phone numbers once again. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Excuse me, or hit pound 690 on your cell phone. I just want to hear a bit more from Tiff Macklem this morning, the Bank of Canada governor. So a lot of the question now is what will happen in the coming months. He hinted at it earlier that there are all these factors that he's looking at when thinking about whether to cut again in October. Here he is responding to a question, starting with that question from Globe and Mail reporter Mark Randall.
What would you need to see on the inflation front and on, I guess, the economic and employment front to cut again this fall?
Well, Mark, if there was just one thing, the job would be so easy. I think you got to look at everything together. Obviously, tariffs are weakening the Canadian economy. You can see that very acutely in the directly affected sectors, for example, transportation and related services that are supporting those trade sectors. And you've seen employment, you've seen quite a bit of job losses in those sectors. One thing that has changed since July, in July, when we looked in July, what you saw is that in the rest of the economy, employment was still growing. Employment growth in the rest of the economy has now slowed. We will certainly be looking very closely at what are the spillovers from weaker exports to the rest of the economy, and that that is going to be an important factor going forward. The weaker the economy, obviously, the more downward pressure that puts on inflation.
That is Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem speaking this morning. I just want to put an email here to both of you, my guests, Hasan Juma with Juma Realty and Rebecca Casey with the Canadian Mortgage Brokers Association in BC. Charlene writes us, Canadians are carrying record levels of debt. But also, let's lower interest rates to stimulate spending. So it seems to me these are conflicting issues and goals and messages. So Charlene, thank you very much. I suppose, for the economy, Rebecca, this is, let's boost spending or give people more ability to borrow. At the same time, at some point, you're going to be worried about the households carrying so much debt. How do we resolve those two things?
Yeah, I think it's important to distinguish, though, that the high levels of debt aren't necessarily from my perspective anyway, not necessarily just reckless spending. It's not people just choosing to overspend. It's people carrying really high costs of borrowing that they didn't anticipate. That's what I see a lot of in my business when I'm talking to clients
Okay.
who are working through debt consolidation. It's I took out a mortgage in 2020, 2021. I was variable. My payments climbed beyond, what anybody thought they would climb to. I'm just trying to weather and survive. I'm leaning on that credit card to pay for my kids' dance or hockey or whatever. And now I need help. And a lot of those people were not in a position to refinance, consolidate their debt, and lower their overhead and their borrowing. They were stuck in this situation with a high mortgage payment, high credit card bill, high line of credit, because they don't qualify to refinance because the stress test is so high. So every time we drop interest rates, we open up a little bit more breathing room for qualification. We open up a little bit more breathing room on the overhead, and we can help settle some of those debts and put people in a more consolidated, manageable budget. So that's one thing that I see a lot of. And I just want to, relieve some of the narrative around people just recklessly spending. That's not what I see. I see families who have weathered through really high inflation. Groceries were just over the top. Cucumbers cost $9. What is this? And that's not, fault of their own. It's not always easy to adjust your spending through high levels of inflation, as your other caller mentioned, when wages aren't keeping up. So
Okay.
that's my take.
Yeah, I have 30 seconds, but Hasan, do you have the same thought?
I'll take an alternate take. I can't disagree with that email. I feel like it's the Canadian way, and not from a consumer level, but if you look at all levels of government and the debts and the deficits, it's cyclical. This is how it works. The rates come down, people borrow more, but at the same time, that encourages businesses to borrow more as well and invest more, and perhaps invest in people. I think it was Chris that mentioned they're not investing in people enough wages wise, but it's cyclical. We need to incentivize the businesses to do that as well.
That is very interesting. I'm going to pause here, but let you finish your answer as we pause for a TV break. And Hasan, Juma, you're speaking about that this is cyclical. So it's not, are you saying it's not necessarily a bad thing?
Well, it's not a good thing to be carrying, high levels of debt, but, it was mentioned that, there's different types of debt out there, right? There's assets if you're investing in assets or real estate, and that the real estate values go up over time. But ultimately, that's kind of how consumerism has been built in our country. You take on debt and you purchase assets and you gain equity and you kind of move forward from there. But it starts at the government, starts top down when it comes to debts and deficits, especially as those grow as well.
It sounds like a lot of factors then before the governing council as they move toward October. Yeah. Always good to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
As Hasan Juma with Juma Realty. And my thanks as well to Rebecca Casey, who's president of the Canadian Mortgage Brokers Association in BC. An email here from Lisa who writes, if you think wages aren't going up, try being a senior living on old age security whose income is just a bit above being able to get the supplement. Oh, okay. When will OAS ever get to a rate that will match cost of living or even near it? Thank you very much for that. Another note here, what do retired people who depend on interest from their savings do in today's economy? So that as well. So if you've been relying on the interest growing, what does this mean for you when you see the rate cut? You know what? That's a very good question. I'll put that to my next guests as well, as we'll be joined by a financial author, Jessica Moorhouse, and Bryan Yu, who's the chief economist with the Central One Credit Union here in BC. It is 12:30 now. You're with BC Today here on CBC. I'm Michelle Elliott. And coming up at 1 o'clock, BC's Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General will make an announcement about what they're calling actions to address extortion threats targeting the South Asian community. We'll bring that to you live on our online stream. So you can see that on cbc.ca/BC, on the CBC News app, on CBC Gem, on YouTube as well, if you're joining us on our YouTube channel. It will not be on CBC Radio or CBC Television, so if you are joining us there right now, you can move to those platforms online or those apps to watch that live coverage coming up again at 1 o'clock. Right now it is 12:31. We'll continue our conversation about your financial reality and your financial future, all amid the interest rate cut announced today by the Bank of Canada governor. Taking your calls in our next half hour as well. It is time now for a CBC News update with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. Premier David Eby is traveling to Ottawa today to meet with Prime Minister Mark Carney in an effort to drum up more funding for the province. Eby will be in Ottawa until tomorrow, where he's expected to talk to the federal government about additional projects that may qualify for the next round of funding for nation-building items. 2 of the 5 projects already identified last week are here in BC. As we've been hearing on the show, the Bank of Canada has lowered its key policy rate for the first time in half a year. It now stands at 2.5%, down 25 basis points. Governor Tiff Macklem says the job market has softened, inflation has eased, and the removal of retaliatory tariffs against the U.S. has reduced the risk of inflation. And Nanaimo RCMP are warning people to lock their doors, windows, and gates as they investigate several reports of a prowler. Mounties say early yesterday someone came home and found a man standing on their apartment patio looking into their windows. The man took off before police arrived. Patrol officers say they are increasing their presence in the central and southern parts of the city. And now the forecast on the north coast. A chance of showers this afternoon with strong winds and a high of 17. Highs reaching 29 with increasing cloudiness in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, showers late this afternoon with a high of 23. Highs around 27 with sunshine in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, sunny with a high of 29. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, hazy this afternoon, some sunshine as well, with highs around 21 up to 24 inland. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you very much, Rob. Have you been to Science World recently?
Not lately.
Yeah.
My son's 25.
That's
so
it.
It's been about... I've been a year and a half. No, it's been about 15 years, I guess.
That's so true. It's very much tied to how old your kids are. I'm the same. Yes. I haven't been there in a while, although my son did work there for a little bit. So I was there doing pickup. But yeah, it's a lot more magical when you've got little kids, eh?
It's true.
Well, we have a story for you right now on this. Thank you so much, Rob.
Sure.
That's Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. It is a top destination when you're visiting as well. If you're a tourist, they are taking this exhibit on the road now to different schools around the province. And this is a traveling program, and especially leading up to the FIFA World Cup this year. This new exhibit called The Science of Sport is pretty exciting stuff from them. And Stefano Giulianetti is the program lead with Science World.
The momentum from the FIFA World Cup coming to Canada and the British Columbia is definitely tangible already. I think that kids already know that, and it's great. Being able to give them some context for what's exciting about sports specifically, more than just the fandom, is really a great opportunity, because we're going to be able to sort of reveal some of the hidden science around what makes it exciting. What is it that we like? Anticipation, we like the stats, we like the technology. And in fact, there's also lots of different jobs that are around the game. The game is not just the players kicking the ball around and putting it in the net. It's the people getting together, it's the size of the field, it's the engineers that design the fabric that wicks and dries quickly. There's so much. There's textile engineers. So just opening their minds up to the different things so they can be excited in a broader, more, scientific way.
That's very cool. I will also say I'm a sucker for those demos on stage. I will say that. It is 12:35. Welcome back. You're with BC Today. And a reminder that coming up at 1 o'clock, BC's Minister of Public Safety is going to speak and address extortion threats targeting the South Asian community. So we'll bring that to you live online. So on our online streams, you'll find that on cbc.ca/BC, on the CBC News app or CBC Gem, as well on YouTube. So if you're listening to us on CBC Radio or watching us on CBC Television right now, you can move to those online platforms and apps to watch that live coverage coming up in about 25 minutes from now. And you are with BC Today here on CBC. I'm Michelle Elliott. We are continuing our conversation about finances. And this morning, the Bank of Canada did cut its overnight lending rate by 25 basis points to 2.5%, the first time since March. And this is as the Canadian economy does continue to slow. August inflation rate stayed within the 2% target, though. We're asking you, what is your financial reality right now? And how are you feeling about your financial future? Whether you're starting out or mid-career looking to buy a home, planning for retirement. If you are retired as well, we're getting some comments from people who are retired too. Let us know how you're feeling about your immediate financial future. Are you optimistic or uncertain? Our numbers, once again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email us, bctoday@cbc.ca, and you can leave a comment on TikTok as well. We are live on TikTok at CBC British Columbia. And my next two guests for this half hour are Jessica Moorhouse, who's an accredited financial counselor and host of the More Money podcast and author as well of Everything But Money. And Bryan Yu is the chief economist at Central One Credit Union. Good afternoon to you both.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us. Bryan, I'll start with you with this question that we got actually earlier on in our in this discussion in our first half hour. And Chris called from Victoria just wondering, in our day-to-day, we're hearing about what this means for mortgage holders and those looking to purchase a home. But what does this mean for people in their day-to-day lives? Will they see a difference?
Yeah, there's a couple of things around, what is the impact for the people on the ground at this point. When we look about HELOCs and things like the lines of credit, the direct impact is that those rates are going to fall off. So slight improvement in terms of some of the finances there. They pay a little bit less. I think when we look at this through sort of the day-to-day, I think we have to look at this as a reflection of what's happening in the economy right now. Rate cuts are good for those who have to pay some interest and the like, but we're also seeing that this is the reflection of a weaker economy. It does mean that right now the economy is in pretty somewhat rough shape. We've seen a lot of job losses the last couple of months. We've seen economic activity contract in the second quarter, and there's a lot of uncertainty around that. So they have to take it through those two lenses essentially of happening.
So Jessica, given that then, does this mean anything for people in their day-to-day, or are they just fighting back against that weaker economy?
It was already said, if you do carry debt, especially variable rate debt, variable mortgage, line of credit, this could be good for you, could provide a little bit of relief. I think for most people, this may not move the needle. I was doing a little research before this, and most people say, well, I think this has already kind of been factored into a lot of pricing. So we don't think it's going to have as big of an impact as some people may think. Day to day, I think we're probably expecting some more rate cuts in the future because of the slowed economy. And I think what most people are really concerned about, especially, are those job numbers. Employment is up to 7.1%, I believe. And that has people very concerned because that is their financial security. And so although this, I think, is good news that, the Bank of Canada is paying attention to what's going on, ultimately, it's not good news because it is the view of what's going on with our economy right now, which we're not in the best spot that we'd like to be, and there's a lot of uncertainty that I feel like we've been talking about this since the beginning of the year. We're heading to we're not too far off to the end of the year, and it's been uncertain all the way through, and so I think a lot of people have just been very anxious and concerned, and not sure exactly what direction to go because it seems like it's impossible to predict what the future holds.
Right. So that question is this even enough? And you're right about the unemployment rate, even more so for youth unemployment, double that. So for people who are, for millennials and Gen Z, what's your sense of how they're feeling about that financial future?
Well, they've never been very positive or optimistic about their financial futures. I think going back to even to 2020, what I am seeing a lot of conversations about from Gen Z and Gen Y is, no sudden moves. This isn't the time to maybe make a big career change or do anything drastic. A lot of younger people, especially, which is very reminiscent, quite honestly, to the sentiment when I was in my 20s, was get whatever job you can because they're, far and few between. And if you're in a job that you don't like, stick it out until things improve. So there's definitely a lot of concern and pessimism, I think, going on in terms of the job market and just, what you should and shouldn't do right now. It's funny just to think that only just a few years ago, we were having conversations of, Gen Z, kind of opting out of work and things like that. It's very different right now. There's very much a just take whatever job is around because, there aren't that many jobs.
Yeah. Bryan, what do you see as the main factors in the softening job market?
So we have a number of factors. Obviously, the tariffs in the U.S. and the impact of U.S. policy on the broader economy is a factor here. We've seen nationally a lot of that big drop off in growth around the export sector. That also impacts things like, whether it's trucking, transportation, warehousing, all those kind of sectors as well, and just business investment. So when we talk about the overall hiring environment, a business isn't going to invest if they don't have a clear picture of what's going to happen over the next year. Will there be more growth? Will there be sales growth? If they don't have that, there's no real great reason for them to kind of add to their costs in the short run. So that investment is a big factor right now that is kind of holding back that job market. We're also seeing, I think, again, young people, double-digit unemployment rates. Even those who are looking for summer for jobs, those were really in rough shape.
Yeah.
And that's been a big sort of a wake-up call, I think, for us as well about how weak that labor market has been, is that there's not a lot of good news out there when it comes to whether it's job vacancies or job vacancy rates or employment growth. And we are looking at it right now, and I think the Bank of Canada seldom only cuts once. They're going to likely go again, probably by the end of this year. And again, a reflection of that, the overall economy is softening, and we want to really kind of drive is some of that business investment, hopefully kind of transition us into a phase of more growth in jobs going forward.
Okay, that line, no sudden moves, that Jessica just threw out there, that seems to me that resonates in so many areas and probably for different people too. We want to put out our numbers and go to our callers now. Again, asking you, what is your financial reality right now? And are you optimistic or uncertain about the future when it comes to your finances? You can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Or you can just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Our email is bctoday@cbc.ca. And Angelo is on the line from Nanaimo. Hi, Angelo. What are your thoughts on your financial reality, what the future looks like?
Hi, Michelle. So I'm doing okay. I mean, my wife and I, we're in our 50s, and we're just going to leave. We're just going to go to Spain because the healthcare system actually works there, and it's cheaper to live.
You're moving?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Really? Okay.
But there's a specific reason that I'm calling that it seems like has not been addressed. The 30% threshold that is recommended for people to use on housing.
Right.
it's not being enforced by the banks. And a lot of people, especially here in the Vancouver area, are living like they're spending 60-70% on their loans, and of course they can't spend any money on anything else, and they're having a hard time. And the prices are just going up and up and up. Why not force the banks in Canada and anybody else who gives mortgages to enforce the 30% threshold? That way, the people who are selling their homes are not going to get as many bidders, because of course everybody has to only be able to purchase what they can afford. And so the prices will slowly start coming down and be tied to the wages that people are making.
Angelo, thank you very much. Yeah, and we had that stress test, right, that the federal government had put in place. So this is the 30% of your budget that going to housing is what's considered affordable. It was interesting. We talked to a mortgage broker, the president of the Mortgage Brokers Association in BC, saying, some of that is also just the rise of interest rates themselves, and that's why that proportion of the budget has increased. But what are the checks and balances right now, Jessica, so people don't exceed what they can afford? Are there enough checks and balances?
I'd say maybe on the grander scale, maybe not enough. I think a lot of the kind of things that you're supposed to do to ensure that you aren't spending, the majority of your income on things like shelter, whether that's rent. Rent is still very expensive. I'm in Toronto. It's very expensive here. Mortgages, things like that. A lot of it is left up to the individual, the borrower. And, when there aren't certain constraints or certain rules in place, we end up maybe changing our budget. I remember just a few years ago, back in 2021, which was a very crazy time to sell and buy a property. And we did so, and we had a certain budget. And every time we kept on finding a place, there was a bidding war. So we had to keep on increasing our budget. Now, being me, I, of course, made sure that I knew our specific limit that I was comfortable with, because I also knew, hey, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Interest rates could rise, and they did very quickly after. But I think a lot of people, I knew, but still, I think a lot of people may not have those guardrails, especially too when you're working with professionals. And again, nothing against them, but you're working with mortgage brokers, mortgage agents, real estate professionals who are salespeople and want you to spend money. And so there's, often aren't anyone trying to kind of rein you in. So you really do have to kind of do that yourself, or have someone who can help you kind of through that. Having your partner be that person is also good, but it can be very difficult to figure the balance.
For the bank, though, I'll go to you for your thoughts on this, because for the bank to approve that mortgage, I'll go to you, Bryan, on this. Were there not stress tests? Are there not, considerations and requirements to ensure that someone can afford to carry on this, to take on this debt and this mortgage?
I think first, the 30% affordability ratio is kind of a rule of thumb. I think historically, people are talking about, it shouldn't be paying more than 30% of your income. It's not really dependent. It's a rule, but it's not one it's not something that can be enforced. That's just that. A household.
It's a guideline sort of thing, yeah.
And when we think about lenders, though, there are absolutely guidelines here. It's like gross debt servicing ratios, how much you're going to be putting towards servicing your debt on an income basis. Whether or not you have a sufficient down payments, and if you need to use a stress test as a result. So there absolutely are guardrails, and there have been increasingly guardrails around this. Since even 2005 period. At one point, we had 40-year amortization products, which were very brief, 35 years, and now I believe we're in that 25 range for those that are insured. So there's definitely policies in place that are limiting the ability for lending and for borrowers to get into excess debt, and we've seen that, especially in the stress test scenario, that it has kind of helped, again, maintaining a cushion for potential buyer, for those buyers who may have gotten a very low rate during an earlier time. So there are, and I think that affordability is a very challenging, a challenging issue because it's different across the country. In a market like BC, we have very high home prices. People do pay more. And if they don't meet those income thresholds, sometimes they borrow from their families or they get co-loans from their parents or whoever it is in order to obtain housing or to buy housing.
Okay, let's take another call here now. But yeah, they're thinking about, what are your own personal guardrails and what is systemically are the checks and balances when it comes to taking on debt. Good conversation there. Ben is on the line in Kamloops to take us back to the rate cut and what it means for him. Hi, Ben.
Yeah, hi there. So I heard the young lady guest that was on there, and she said that the only thing that matters to BC taxpayers is the unemployment rate. I would tell you 100% incorrect. I'm an employer.
Okay, I think, are you referring to my current guest, Jessica Moorhouse, who's the financial author?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So we're an employer. We have 3 guys going nonstop. We're busy as heck. The only thing about this rate cut that matters to me is the rate cut because my mortgage goes down. I can afford to pay people more. I can afford my bills. Like 100% opposite of what your guest said. The only thing that matters is the rate cut.
And this is you as a homeowner with a variable rate. And an employer. Tell me more about that. So you run a business?
We run an electrical business. We have 4 guys going. We're very busy. But yeah, like I said, the 100% fact, the rate cut affects me big time because I can pay my bills. I can pay my mortgage.
Yeah.
The employment numbers do not matter. We're busy.
That's really interesting.
Rate cut matters.
And so what about, Ben, that's good news for you, obviously. I'm wondering as well, because when we hear about unemployment, it's due to businesses feeling uncertain about hiring more, taking on more because of perhaps uncertainty in the near future. Is that something that's a concern for you or no?
Well, I mean, being fiscally responsible, we would only take on the employees we can actually pay.
Sure.
Right. So at this point, we're at 4 employees. We're paying them full time. We're $75,000 a year per employee. We're doing pretty well with that. Business is booming. But like I said, when I heard her say that, residents don't care about the rate cut, heck yes, we do. 100%. That's the only thing I care about.
Yeah.
The unemployment numbers don't matter. The rate cut matters.
Good to hear from you, Ben. Thank you very much. And really interesting to hear your reaction that this is going to make a difference for you. I'll go back to Jessica Moorhouse on that. What you talked about was the uncertainty that people are feeling, but I'll let you respond in your own words.
I don't know how to respond to being called the lady guest.
That's why I brought up your name. Yeah.
I think what I was trying to express is there's still a lot of uncertainty, even with this rate cut. I think a lot of businesses are still, again, kind of, resistant to making any big changes, such as oh, great, there's a, little bit of a rate cut, so let's start hiring more. I don't think most businesses, and again, very much a generalization. There's different businesses. It sounds like his is very successful and doing well. That's not the case for every business, depending on the industry. And so I think even with this rate cut, even though it does give a little breathing room to a lot of businesses, they can pay their bills and their loans a lot easier. It still may not make a big enough impact in some people's eyes in terms of, hiring and, increasing, the kind of movements in the economy because it has slowed down. So that's kind of more what I was saying, but I guess I hit a nerve.
But I think also he may have been just you jumping for joy at the news of the rate cut today, and maybe perhaps wanted to share that. But yes, I take your point, and I certainly wanted to introduce you as with your name and your title. There you have it. Let's quickly go to Mary in Kamloops because Mary just wants to share her situation right now. Before I want to wrap up with a question about what if you're relying on interest rates actually increasing because of your investments. But Mary in Kamloops, hello, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi, Mary.
Oh,
Can you hear us, Mary?
hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay, I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I know everybody's struggling right now, and it's hard for everybody, but we need to stop overspending. I've made the mistake with myself that you get yourself into credit card debt and you get maxed out, and then you can't afford to pay anything. And what happened is I had a mortgage, and I went to borrow more to pay off my debt, and I didn't qualify anymore because and I ended up just buckling down, and I still made my payments, and I tried to put extra on everything, and now I live by the theory is only expenses get paid. Everything else I bank now, and it's emergencies only. No credit card debt, nothing. I'm mortgage free now, but it took a long time. But we just it's a personal sacrifice that people need to do is look at their bills first, pay their bills first, and have some money laid away on the side in case of emergency, in case the interest rate does go up.
Getting back to those basics, Mary, thank you very much. I can hear Jessica nodding and agreeing with that. Certainly, I have just about a minute and a half. I want to get to this question about what if you're a retired person depending on the interest from their savings. What do you do then if you're looking at rate cuts? Bryan, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, obviously it's going to be more challenging the last couple of years, and we kind of saw the upswing in rates that was beneficial for those on kind of fixed income, looking at interest. It is going to get tighter. I think the one single benefit is that inflation is falling, or it is at least more moderate now, where we're sitting at averaging 2.5%, 2% year over year right now. So that's somewhat beneficial, and that's also one of the drivers of why rates are coming off right now. We're sitting roughly in line where purchasing power is kind of maintained. It does depend upon where you're spending your income, though. For those who, if you have you're much more geared towards more volatile pricing, that could be a challenge. And in certain segments, like for example, food prices are still up 3.5% year over year. That is faster than what we're seeing in the inflation numbers. We're also still seeing rent prices, although they're kind of falling and it's slowing growth, it's still relatively high as well. So it will depend. It does mean that those individuals will have to make some adjustments. However, some people have also seen a lot of equity gains. So there's in terms of the stock market, if they're still invested in there.
It kind of depends where you're looking at what you're looking at this from. Really appreciate both of you joining us. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Bryan Yu, Chief Economist with Central One Credit Union. Jessica Moorhouse is an accredited financial counselor, host of the More Money podcast, and author of the book, Everything But the Money. When it comes to rent, Anicia wrote us, I moved into my current rental at the height of rental prices. I expect my landlord's mortgage payments could be going down with this rate drop, but I don't expect they're going to lower my rent accordingly. Your guest mentioned housing the unhoused is the biggest priority. Of course it is, but those of us on a fixed income are afraid of being unable to pay our rent. Thank you so much for your email, bctoday@cbc.ca. Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thank you for joining us. We're about to take you live to a press conference with BC's Public Safety Minister and Solicitor General Nina Krieger. She'll be joined by other law enforcement officials and Crime Stoppers BC. They're set to make an announcement to address extortion threats targeting the South Asian community. Now, that press conference is set to begin any moment now. We'll take it to you live as soon as it begins. Right now, CBC reporter Mira Baines joins me. Hi, Mira.
Hi, Michelle.
Tell me about the concerns around these extortion threats targeting the South Asian community. How significant has that concern been?
Sure. Just on Monday, the Surrey Police Service said that they were investigating 44 cases of extortion and about 27 cases of shootings that are linked to these extortion attempts. And they're targeting primarily members of the South Asian community. Just over this summer, we saw Caps Cafe, a cafe owned by a Bollywood star, being shot at several times. We also have heard about a car wash that was shot at, as well as businesses and strip malls. I can see officials that are getting up to the podium to start the news conference, but there are a lot of concerns that some of these extortion attempts have been linked to the Lawrence Bishnoi gang, which is based in India, and whether the government of India is involved themselves. The government of India has also denied claims that they're linked to any of these extortion attempts, but there has been a reward offered by the City of Surrey, $250,000, to any information leading to convictions in these extortion cases. And we do understand there was an arrest made of Gurdeep Singh Shergill in Surrey. That was announced just yesterday, and that was involving an attempt in Peel. So there does seem to be some cross-jurisdictional cooperation, and we'll be hearing from officials very soon.
We sure are. I can see them preparing right now. Let's go live to the press conference right now.
I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Katsi, Kwantlen, and Semiahmoo First Nations. We are grateful to live, work, and gather on this land. I will begin by introducing our distinguished guests. Nina Krieger, the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General. Assistant Commissioner John Brewer of the BC RCMP. Assistant Commissioner Manny Mann, Chief Officer of the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit BC. Chief Superintendent Wendy Mihat, Officer in charge of the RCMP Surrey Provincial Operations Support Unit. Chief Constable Colin Watson of the Abbotsford Police Department. Chief Constable Harj Sidhu of the Delta Police Department. Chief Officer Suzanne Muir of the Metro Vancouver Transit Police. Deputy Chief Mike Prosick of Surrey Police Service. Nina Patel, Regional Director for the Pacific Region Canadian Border Services Agency. John Lindy, Director for the Canadian Border Services Agency. Superintendent Adam McIntosh from the Federal RCMP National Coordination and Support Team. And Gillian Millam, Executive Director for BC Crime Stoppers. Thank you all for taking the time to be here as we announce further action to strengthen our response to extortions in our province. I'd like to invite the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General, Nina Krieger, to tell you more.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Sergeant Munn, and my thanks to all of you for joining us today. I am so grateful that we are coming together here on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Semiahmoo, Katsi, Coquitlam, Kwantlen, Kakite, and Tsawwassen First Nations. Recent extortion attempts and related acts of violence targeting the South Asian community are deeply concerning. No person or family or business in our province should be threatened in this way, and we must do everything we can to stop these crimes. And we must continue to do this work together. This is why the province is standing up a new provincial task force that will be solely dedicated to investigating these extortion threats. BC's Extortion Task Force will support a comprehensive and coordinated approach to extortion investigations. The task force will be led by the BC RCMP and made up of 40 members from law enforcement agencies throughout BC. This includes 10 members from Lower Mainland RCMP detachments, 12 from the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit, 2 from Surrey Police Services, 2 from the Abbotsford Police Department, 1 from the Delta Police Department, 1 from the Canadian Border Services Agency, 1 from the Metro Vancouver Transit Police, as well as support staff. A diverse membership and province-wide mandate to target organized crime-related extortion threats in BC sets this task force apart from existing units. It will build on the ongoing work of existing joint forces operations, bringing in new policing partners under a single command structure and expanding its cross-jurisdictional reach. This task force formalizes the sharing of intelligence about extortion threats, allowing police to be more effective in investigating organized crime activity. Our government is committed to ensuring that police have the resources that they need to identify, investigate, and arrest those responsible for crimes and bring them to justice. In addition to creating this new task force, we are making $200,000 available through the Federal Gun and Gang Violence Action Fund to support municipal police departments. This funding will allow departments that are part of the task force to tackle extortion threats in their communities, which are not within the scope of the new task force. In addition, we are providing $100,000 from the Federal Gun and Gang Violence Action Fund to continue the Crime Stoppers public awareness campaign. This campaign sustains public education and awareness about extortion, letting people know what to do if they or someone they know is threatened, urging community members to come forward with information to support investigations. The commitments being announced today build on the more than $100 million annually that the province allocates to support specialized enforcement efforts to stop criminals and bringing violence, guns, and toxic drugs into our communities. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Surrey Mayor Brenda Locke, Surrey City Council, and the Surrey Police Service for announcing earlier this week an extortion tip line, as well as reward money for tips leading to convictions. Extortion threats targeting South Asian businesses and families are not acceptable, and it is vital that all levels of government, police, the justice system, and community continue to work together to bring extortionists to justice. Victims or anyone with information should call local police, including the Surrey Extortion Tip Line or Crime Stoppers if they wish to remain anonymous. The province will continue working with Surrey and all impacted municipalities to bring perpetrators to justice and make communities safer. We are also providing supports to victims of extortion, and I encourage anyone impacted by these threats to reach out for help should they need it. Our government funds Victim Link BC, a 24/7 service offered in more than 100 languages that provides access to counseling and other resources. In addition, victims of extortion may be eligible to receive support through the province's Crime Victim Assistance Program. In closing, I would like to thank the BC RCMP for leading this task force. My heartfelt thanks to all of the policing partners with us today who are working tirelessly to bring the perpetrators of these crimes to justice. A message directly to you. It is vitally important, the work that you do, and it is challenging work. I want to let you know how much I appreciate the deep expertise and commitment you bring to your jobs each and every day. We all want to be able to work and live without fear of threats or violence. The province will continue to ensure that police have the tools necessary to fight crimes in our communities as we work to build a safer British Columbia for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. I'd now like to invite Assistant Commissioner John Brewer from the BC RCMP to provide a few remarks.
Good afternoon. This has been a significant amount of work done to date to advance these complex extortion investigations in our province. Police agencies and partners across the region and the country have continued to work both proactively and reactively in order to advance these investigations, protect our communities, and to hold those responsible accountable. The BC RCMP is committed to advancing the investigative efforts taken to date and enhancing the coordination and collaboration of the established Joint Forces operation. Now, that smaller project team will expand with scope and number of cases that will be taken on from various local police departments in the region. Under an RCMP-led command, this dedicated and expanded team brings in additional resources, intelligence analysts, and tactical skills from multiple law enforcement agencies with the common goals of protecting our communities from these extortions while pursuing and holding those responsible for the violence, intimidation, and fear accountable. I would like to thank the province and our law enforcement partners gathered here today, the Delta Police Department, the Abbotsford Police Department, the Surrey Police Service, the Surrey Provincial Operations Support Unit, the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit BC, Transit Police, and the Canadian Border Services Agency for your commitment to this enhanced unit and leadership in addressing the extortions in our province. We hear and understand the public's frustration in stopping, identifying, and charging those responsible. There continues to be a fine balance between information shared publicly and the information investigative steps being taken by police to advance these complex investigations through covert and other techniques that have to align with immediate priorities of public safety as well as investigative strategies. In order for these investigations to be successful, we can't speak to specific work that has been done to date, but please know that progress is being made. We have been doing everything we can to advance these investigations to where they are today. We are collected and we are processing digital and physical evidence. We have executed search warrants and we have identified people of interest. We have made arrests and we have submitted reports to Crown Counsel for charge assessment and approval. Each of these investigative efforts is a step forward. Our Joint Forces operation has continued to engage in strategic investigative tactics to explore every possible avenue. While some of the victimology and the tactics of threats and intimidations are similar, we do not believe that many of these cases have been committed by the same individuals or organized crime groups. Each investigation is unique and requires a tailored approach to advance these investigations. Whether coordinated or planned or copied as a crime of opportunity, it is not acceptable and you will be held responsible. The Joint Forces operations mandate is simple. Advance the extortion investigations that have taken place in our province, gather evidence and intelligence, and identify and charge those responsible. This team will also continue to work and liaise with the RCMP's federal, national coordination and support team and its nationwide alliance of various police departments that have been dealing with similar types of targeted violence and extortions. One of our strengths throughout these investigations has been information and intelligence sharing with our other police partners across the region and the country. The goal is to identify links, suspects, and move forward in these complex investigations. To those committing these crimes, You have brought fear, uncertainty, and violence to our communities, and that is completely unacceptable. We will not stop in our efforts to identify, locate, and bring you to justice. You will be held accountable. We will continue to support these victims that have been targeted, and we continue to ask anyone who has yet to come forward to please do so. Your information is extremely important to us to continue our investigations. We also discourage anybody from complying with or engaging with extortion demands. Keep anything sent to you for evidentiary purposes. And please, call your local police immediately to report any extortion activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner. This brings us to the end of this afternoon's event. We will now take questions from the media.
Thank you. I'll ask Minister to come back to the podium to take the questions. For media on the phone, if you have a question, please come off speakerphone or Bluetooth. Take your phone off mute. You are not audible until your name is called. Then press *1 to enter the queue for a question and a follow-up. For media in the room, please come to see me here at the microphone and state your full name and outlet before asking your question. And just a reminder that reporters will have one question and one follow-up. We are going to start with Grace K, Global News.
Hi, I had a question. The Joint Force Operation that was, I believe, rolled in, or that was stood up in January 2025, Surrey Police Extortion Task Force is also up and running. Why this change now, where the other task force is simply not getting the job done at the time?
No, those task force and that coordinated work has been essential in the ongoing investigations that Assistant Commissioner Brewer spoke to. This provincial task force is really an opportunity to enhance coordination, cross-jurisdictional exchange of information, and really speaks to the not only local, the regional, but the provincial and the national and the international dimensions of this crime. And I think the involvement of Transit Police, the involvement of Canadian Border Services Agency gives us all of the tools and the right expertise to be able to continue the important work that is underway to investigate these crimes and hold perpetrators to account.
Wasn't this done sooner? I mean, considering the number of cases that we've seen and the level of violence we've seen, why wasn't this done sooner?
I must emphasize that the work being carried out at all levels of enforcement has been carried out with utmost urgency and effectiveness. This is an important moment where the province is not only standing up a task force, but also making additional funds available to municipalities that may be experiencing extortion threats that lay beyond the scope of the task force, and also announcing the continuation of the Crime Stoppers campaign to really ensure there is broad public awareness about what to do should they or individuals they know be threatened by extortionists.
Hi there, Michelle Bernoro with CTV. I'm not sure who can answer this question I have, but we heard this week how many extortion cases there have been in Surrey this year. Does the province, do police provincially have a tally on how many cases there have been province-wide this year?
I'm going to pass that on to Surrey for more detailed answer about that jurisdiction. But we have reports from Statistics Canada around the increase in extortion threats between 2021 and 2023 that are an increase of 23%, I believe. And that is important that represents extortion across jurisdictions, not just in the regions that we're highlighting today.
Okay. And sorry, is somebody able, is someone from policing able to answer that question? So we know the numbers for Surrey. What I'm wondering is across the province, do we have an idea of how many extortion cases, how many files police are dealing with?
Unfortunately, I can only update you on Surrey's files. And for this year, to date, we are 45 extortion complaints, 27 related shootings. But I'll pass it over to Assistant Commissioner Brewer to speak to the provincial numbers.
Thanks, Mike. So provincially, the number of extortion files continually being assessed through now this joint task force. So we're collecting information from not just the police agencies and partners you see behind me, but from police agencies around the province. So the number will go up daily. It'll also come down because, as I said earlier, some of these are known extortion groups we're dealing with, and others are just that spur of the moment extortion may be done by a family member to another family member or a known friend. So that's where we are with that. So I can't give you an exact number, but I will tell you that every single extortion file that we get in this province is being triaged through this joint forces operation.
Sorry. Okay. I just didn't quite, but you must have a rough idea. You must, I mean, we know exactly how many there is in Surrey. You must have an idea. Is there dozens more across the province? Is there 2 or 3? Like, what are we talking about?
So, yeah, so the JFO right now, we're triaging files as we speak. So as I speak, there'll be more files taken on by the JFO today. For the files as far as that are before the JFO, right now we have the Surrey files coming in, and we're currently triaging files from all the other jurisdictions behind me. I don't have an exact number for that yet.
Okay. And my second question is just, excuse me, do we need a dedicated Crown Counsel to deal with these cases? Because you said you guys are making progress. You've sent files to Crown. So do you need a specific Crown Counsel that's just looking at these files?
I will say the Joint Forces operation is working close with BC Crown Counsel with the files we are putting before them, and they are being worked accordingly by Crown Counsel and with support, direct support and input from the JFO.
Good afternoon. My name is Parmeet Kamra, and my question is to Minister. So will the task force be empowered to pursue leads if they are outside of Canada, if they're operating outside of Canada?
So the task force is connected not only to local, regional law enforcement, but also national. And the presence of the Canadian Border Service Agency really underscores the international elements of these crimes. And I can certainly pass things on to the representative from Canadian Border Services Agency to speak about that further.
I think I'd ask Superintendent McIntosh from the National Support Unit to come and answer that.
So thank you for your question. First off, I represent the federal policing side of the RCMP and the national coordination. We've been doing so for about 18 months. I think the answer, although I can't speak specifically for Assistant Commissioner Brewer, but the RCMP have jurisdiction across the country. Obviously, we have international liaisons throughout the world. We've been participating in that regard in support of the extortions across the country since day one, continue to do that. And if there are leads that take us outside of Canada, which have already occurred, continue to occur every day, of course, we're going to pursue those.
And my follow-up question is, what metrics will be used to measure the success of this task force, and how often will this update on the progress will be released to the public?
Thank you for that question. So success is twofold. One, of course, is we want the number of extortions to decline and diminish to zero. And then furthermore, the next part is we want to have successful investigations put to the Crown so that then they can assess it for charge approval and then move it to the courts. That's the measure of success for this Joint Forces operation.
Mira Baines with CBC. Thanks for taking my question. And this is for the BC RCMP. Do we know how many of these shootings or extortion attempts are linked to gangs based in India? For example, we also have the Lawrence Bishnoi gang, consideration being made that it be declared a terrorist organization. How would that help as well?
Yeah, so we are aware of a number of the files that we are currently working that are linked through groups within British Columbia, and we're working with our partners across the country through the federal RCMP to make those linkages with the other groups, and then, of course, as Superintendent McIntosh said, outside the country.
Yeah, for sure. And this is again for CBSA, but I guess you would have your national coordination. Just in terms of how difficult is it to investigate some of these links in India, since law enforcement officials have been flagged to they aren't allowed to basically go to India and travel?
Well, I don't think that's quite accurate. However, any international, transnational investigation has complexities, regardless of whether it's an extortion, cyber attack, or everywhere in between. However, the federal policing has a robust system in place that deals with organized crime investigations internationally, as well as investigations that may cross into the national security or foreign actor interference. This is first and foremost for federal policing. Our national security program has been engaged and involved from day one and continues to be involved. The particulars of that, for obvious reasons, I won't get into today, except to say that where investigations occur, we are focused on the organized crime component, which is prevalent throughout the majority of these types, with the exception of potentially your copycat, take advantage of type situations. And we coordinate that information across the world. And we've been successful in doing that, and we chase down those leads. The perpetrators, whether or not they are connected to a state actor, is a part of those investigations, and we continue to do that today.
Gagandeep Singh from Red FM. My question is from Minister. If we talk about Surrey alone, police are investigating 44 extortion cases and 27 of which are related to shooting. Why have no arrests been made so far? The community is fed up with these announcements. They want results, and even people have started saying that BC is now becoming a safe place for the criminals.
I've had the opportunity in my role to speak to families and business owners affected by extortion threats and by violence. And I can understand the pain, the fear, the intimidation of these crimes and the impacts that they have, not only on individuals, families, and businesses, but also on entire communities. That's why the province of BC is committed to investing all the resources that we can to ensure that police have the tools and resources that they need to investigate these crimes and bring perpetrators to justice. I understand there may be frustration that there have not been more arrests. There have been arrests made, but I can assure that investigations are in progress. As Assistant Commissioner John Brewer stated, it's challenging to be able to talk about the investigative work in progress, but we can assure you that investigations are ongoing, receiving all of the attention and resources that they need. And we really encourage all community members that have any information about threats to please contact local police, to please contact Crime Stoppers should they wish to be anonymous. Any and all amount of information that law enforcement receives will support these investigations. Thank you.
Community is saying that they are ready to give the tips, but the main problem is that regarding framing the charges against them. So are you planning to lower the threshold related to extortion or shooting cases so that more charges can be successfully approved?
So I would say that the focus of this task force is on the investigative side of things. And really that is our primary focus right now, is to identify, investigate, arrest, and bring charges against criminals. Any decisions related to prosecution services are made independently of government, and they will decide whether and when to potentially add additional prosecution services to this case.
You have been listening to BC's Public Safety Minister and Solicitor General Nina Krieger. She's joined by other law enforcement officials. They have just announced a new task force focused on investigating extortion threats targeting the South Asian community. This task force will consist of 40 members from various policing agencies, including the BC RCMP, the Abbotsford Police Department, the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit in BC, the Delta Police Department, the Metro Vancouver Transit Police, Surrey Police Service, and the Canada Border Services Agency. BC RCMP Assistant Commissioner John Brewer called the investigations around extortion threats complex. He also said while there appears to be similarities in the cases, they don't believe the threats are being made by the same individual or organized crime group. Earlier this week, Surrey's mayor and police chief announced a reward of $250,000 for tips that lead to successful convictions in extortion cases. Surrey currently investigating more than 40 cases of extortion and 27 related shootings. It is a rising concern in other Canadian cities as well. Last year, the RCMP established a national team to coordinate investigations about extortion schemes targeting South Asian businesses in BC, Alberta, and Ontario. And there are calls, including from BC Premier David Eby, to declare the Lawrence Bishnoi Gang, which is based in India, to be declared a terror organization in Canada. Much more on this story on our website, cbc.ca/BC, and coming up on your afternoon newscasts on CBC Radio and CBC News BC. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thank you for joining us.